What's up, Professor Braylock, and whoever else may be watching? My name is Dan Rosario Jr. Today I'm going to be talking about the spiritual discipline of solitude. So, what is solitude? Well, solitude is one of the outward spiritual disciplines. The Bible describes it as a valuable practice that can bring us rewards, it can strengthen us, and it can help us focus on what's important. This spiritual discipline is backed up by scripture, one of which it will be Matthew chapter 6, verse 6. And the NIV version reads, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Mark 6, verse 31. NIV version also reads, "Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, 'Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest.'" Now, some people get these two terms confused. We have solitude, and then we have loneliness. However, these are very different. In fact, Jesus calls us from loneliness to solitude. Because solitude and silence are actually set us free from things like loneliness and things like fear. So, solitude is also more of a state of mind than it is an actual location. So, yes, it is important whenever you're trying to practice solitude to be by yourself. Clearly, that's what we all thought at first, right? But let's be realistic. You can't always be by yourself. And sometimes we don't use the time by ourselves right. So, when we're actually practicing solitude, we're practicing shutting the world out from and within us, from within our brain. So, it's more of a state of mind of blocking out all the outward distractions and focusing on God and focus on to listen to his voice. Now, to have solitude, you need silence, right? Silence helps you listen to what God's saying. As we all know, God speaks in a whisper, so we have to listen closely to what he's saying. There isn't really a way to have solitude without silence. When we're talking about the location, to actually have true solitude, you have to block out what's going on around you. So you need silence. Whether you create that in your mind or whether you create that in actual location and space. So, Ecclesiastes 3:7 says, "A time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak." Ecclesiastes 3:7 talks about how there's a time and place to speak, and there's a time and place to be silent. Whenever you're practicing solitude, that's the time and place to be silent. So, now, how do we practice solitude? First we have to take advantage of the little solitude times. The times where we can have just a little bit of that time, at least to start off. This can be your first 15, we say here at Highlands, you roll out of bed, go sit at your desk, and then, you just have your time right there. But for some of us, that's not realistic. For some of us, we have a roommate that wakes up and likes to play worship music in the morning, right? So maybe you have to come to the school and find you a pod before everybody else gets here. Or maybe you go outside in a space just by yourself, or maybe even in your car. But it's important to have a place where you're by yourself and you can tone out all the noise of the outside. Another thing is we need to let our words be few. What does that mean? Well, of course, in the first 15, part of that, one of those fives is to pray, right? Well, when you're done praying, you need to sit and say nothing, right? I know, it can be awkward at first. I get it. I thought it was awkward as well. But whenever we practice this, that's when we can hear the Lord speak to us clearly. 1 Kings 19:12 talks about when God speaks, he speaks in the form of a whisper. As I said before, we have to listen to that. And it can be hard at first. It can be hard to detect his voice. But to actually practice this spiritual discipline the way it was meant to be practiced, we have to focus on being able to do that. And we have to be quiet so we can hear what he's trying to tell us. Thank you, and have a great day.